team always provides the referees with food after the game. Don't let your fingers get eaten up, okay? He did wash his hands, right? Yes. So, anyway, we thought it would be nice to make desserts, right? So now I'll make a little bit extra for Luke, right? And Luke takes his with lots of bananas. No. Just a little bit of bananas. Just a little bit of bananas.
No! Not even none.
No bananas.
And you don't do this at all to influence the referees on the court?
No. I've done this for 2.5 years, and it has not helped at all. Actually, anybody could do this. If whoever is providing the food for the refs, and I'm sure some people really do provide gourmet snacks for the referees, but we just, I used to swap up desserts, but then I have discovered that all men like banana pudding. Definitely. See, if any referees watch this, I have drawn blood over your banana pudding with my husband before. You wonder why he's mad at you. It's because he knows y'all get his banana pudding. We get there an hour and a half before the game so the little guys can run out on the court. I go and visit our referees before the game just to drop off their desserts. They come all the way to Starkville, which is in the middle of nowhere. So I figured I could do something nice so that they can have a dessert. And cooking is a good way to tell people that you can. Anyway, so I knock. Hopefully they're not changing, and then I stick it in and say hello. Hello? Y'all okay? Hey, good. Thank you.
Very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Welcome to you guys. Welcome. Okay. Yes, sir. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, that's it. And then we'll go to the game. Thank you.
Going to the game was always magical. Nothing ever instilled more excitement and passion in me. From the time I was a young child, the anticipation of a ball game has always gotten my blood flowing. There's nothing I loved more. I grew up in the gym, on the court, and on the field. My name is Jonathan Moore, and I am the son of a coach and a coach's wife. My father was a basketball player in college and wanted to be a coach. My mother had an interest in sports but didn't know much about them. And I grew up in the middle of it all, a shy little boy in the chaotic life of a coaching family. When he had finally retired, my father had coached football, basketball, tennis, golf, and cross country. My parents met in the fall of 1963 at a water fountain at Campbellsville College in Kentucky. They married 10 weeks later and recently celebrated their 52nd anniversary.
Elson chose the date for our wedding, and it was homecoming night.
At the college?
At the college. I was the candidate for homecoming queen, and he played in the basketball game that night.
Right.
And after the basketball game, we got married at 10 minutes after 11 at the Baptist Church.
And my mother was there for it all. Every game, every season, and every sport. She went to practices, road trips, ran the concession stands, and generally kept my father, the team, and myself in line while teaching full-time. I'm not entirely sure she knew what she was getting herself into.
I didn't know him then. I met him right after he got out of the service. He was fresh out of the service.
How'd you guys meet?
John.
That's an easy question.
No, that's a hard one.
Well, you remember, right?
Oh, I do remember, but we actually met before he became a coach. He was a bouncer in a bar. And it's when two-stepping was really popular, and my ex-sister-in-law and I used to go two-stepping at the bar he worked at. Yeah. Made my mother proud.
I was a cheerleader. He was on the basketball team, although I didn't know that he was. And I had a real spitfire guy that was a soccer player at the time. And he was trying to convince me to go to this party Saturday night. It was a Wednesday.
We met on a blind date at a Dodger game. How cliche is that?
We went to high school together. We really did.
We talked on the phone for about 3.5 months before I ever met him.
Well, and I see this guy come down these stairs. And this is December 6th, I remember. But I had seen him, and it was Gino, my husband. But the reason I watched him come down the stairs is I had seen him 2 months before, the middle of October. He and I were the only ones in the gym. He was in there shooting. I had come early for practice. And I sort of stood there and sort of watched him shoot around, and I thought he was pretty cute.
We dated, I guess, about 3 or 4 months, and then I moved to New York City.
We met at Notre Dame High School. I had just been hired as a girls' JV soccer coach.
I had a friend that said, oh, I know this guy, he's really nice. We have Dodger tickets. Do you want to go? And I said, well, tell me about him. And she said, he's a teacher. And I said, no, forget it. I'm not dating a teacher. No way. She said, oh, well, let's just go. He's fun. So that was it. And then our next date was an Angel game. So I guess you could say I knew what I was in for from the very beginning.
My eyes sort of followed him, and Carl says to me, so you want to go to the party with Gino? I said, who's Gino? He said, that guy you were just watching. He said, Gino Oriema. I said, what kind of a name is that? Is that Chinese or something? What kind of a name is Gino Oriema? I said, Carl, you don't say a word to him. I've never met him.
I'm out there, and the girls were practicing, and I said to them, who is that guy? Because I saw this guy just like this. He was just standing there, and he had a hooded sweatshirt on and sweats, and he's just standing there. And he came another day. I said, who is that? They said, oh, that's Coach McNabb. But don't even try, he's spoken for. And this was by one of the girls on the team. She had spoken for him. He didn't know this, but she said he's spoken for.
We actually met at Pizza Hut because some of the local guys were looking for some female athletes to play in a softball tournament. So that was our first meeting, was in Pizza Hut, but actually we were both students at Lindsey Wilson.
I had never met Phil Jackson prior to him, prior to the opening press conference when he came after he was hired. When my father told me that that's who he was interested in hiring to be the new coach of the Lakers.
How did you feel about that?
I said, you know, Dad, I think that might be a mistake. And he said, why? And I said, well, and you know, my only experience with Phil was watching, you know, the success he had with the Bulls, right. But I also knew he was a big personality. And at that time, we had Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, two of the biggest stars in the NBA. And I thought, you know, adding a third star, a third diva, might like throw everything over.
We were both counselors at a Christian sports camp called Kanakuk Camp in Branson, Missouri. And we sat down in the dining hall, side by side, and just had a conversation, and he told me he was a coach in Texas. I was then a student at Texas A&M. Actually, I left camp the next day and never knew that I would meet him, and 6 weeks later, we were back in Bryan College Station. We happened to go to the same church and didn't know that, and he was playing his guitar at a college fellowship and saw me and asked me out, and 6 weeks later he proposed.
So when we started talking on the telephone, it was just what he was saying. He just seemed to be sincere and integral and very kind. His value system was strong, and that's what attracted me before I even met him. And that was one of the things that I remember him asking me once, how do you look? And I wouldn't tell him. I never sent him a picture. So when we finally met each other in place, we had never seen each other.
So then I went over to him and I was like, you know, can I help you? And apparently, Coach Rooney had sent him out to the field, and he said, go check out the JV soccer coach, which was me. So he went to check out the JV soccer coach and just stood there like that. And he's a real fast mover, so about 3 months later, he asked me out on a date.
I came back and I tease him now. It was another 6 months before we started dating again. But I tease him now because he says I moved back from New York for him. And I will tell him that in a college town, you know, there's only a few unmarried non-students in a college town. I tease him, well, you were the only non-married, non-student left in Starkville.
Go to the game that night. Told my girlfriend the story about this guy, Gino. So we're sitting on the bleachers. Now again, I don't know he's even a basketball player. And he comes out, you know, he's the first one, he's bouncing, he leads the squad out onto the floor. I said to my friend Robin, I said, oh my God, that's that guy. She stands up. Now this is in the middle of them warming up. She stands up, calls out, hey Gino, meet Kathy after the game, meet Kathy. So I run out of the gym, I'm horrified. I was so angry with her.
When I met him in person, you know, there was something about him and his voice. It was his voice that, you know, made me sit up straight. I guess that's what coaches have to have, that kind of like ability to like wake you up.
The plan was for us to get married in August. And I said, well, this is April. It's April. I said, well, did you plan on letting me know that? Well, that's what I told you last year. That does not count. Are you asking me? Yeah, okay. Do you want to get married in August? Romance 101, not coaches, no romance.
She wouldn't take me home until Gino came out of the locker room. He was the last person. He's still always the last person in everything when it comes to timing. And I was standing there pathetically waiting. And he took me home, and we ended up going to the parties together that Saturday night. But that's how we met.
What's our schedule for this?
We have carpool. We're going to pick up Isaac in carpool. And then we will go meet another mom. She's picking up Noah from a different school, and we'll meet in the church parking lot. I did not think about Rick's career when I married him. I know that sounds really strange. I think that I already knew what it would be like. It was going to be crazy. You guys may play football in the middle of the parking lot, but stay off the flowers and stay out of the street.
Wait, Dad!
Did you think you would have all boys?
I knew that I would have boys from the time I was very young. I don't know why, but I was never really liked to play with Barbies. I preferred Hot Wheels. They have so much energy, and they can't keep their hands off each other. You gotta get in the car, babe. We're leaving. Rick has no clue what we do every day. He has no idea. I try to tell him who plays a game, who has a practice, so he knows if we'll be home late. There are a few nights each week that we come home late, 8:30, past bedtime basically. But most of the time, Rick's not aware of what we do, from practices to after-school projects or reading fairs or book fairs or going to the library or exercising. So he doesn't keep up with those, and I've just limited the amount of information that I give to him because I think it's taxing on him. Yes?
There's only a place for like 5 people in my school.
Only a place for 5 children? And they chose you? Awesome. What do you get to do? Jumping jacks and
No.
yoga?
No.
You don't know yet? Okay, March 5th. I don't know what March 5th. I think that's SEC tournament.
No.
It's
Mom,
not? Are you sure?
We have to play 3 games and no, I think
It's not. That's the day after Florida. That's next Thursday. We'll be here. But we have to make sure that you don't have a soccer game.
Are they gonna
If someone were to ask me what's the hardest part about having a coach for a husband or for a parent or whatever, it would definitely be the time.
In baseball, the game could be 2 hours long, it could be 5 hours long. So it's really impossible to plan around a baseball coach's schedule. You just have to go with it.
I do sometimes jokingly call the difficult parts of it seasonal widowhood.
There's times that I sit down and think, I've got all this to do, how am I going to get it all done without his help?
It's harder on her than me. Remember, I'm taking care of myself. I just got to make sure that I get supper and that I get this. She's got to feed 2 kids, will soon be 3, get 3 kids baths and get them in bed and work on homework, and she's doing it by herself. Here I waltz in and just ask, are our uniforms clean for tomorrow? And she's probably thinking, I like to throw that uniform, out the door right now, because I've been worried about getting 3 kids together.
Just the other day when I was at a baseball game, an opposing team's wife, coach's wife, came over to me. She said, "Are you the coach's wife?" And I said, "Yeah." She had 2 little kids too, running around her, and she's like, "Kind of feel like a single mom these days, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, you sure do."
See, this is no different from any other mom in the whole world.
I was not prepared. I was very shocked. I cried at nighttime thinking, he's spending more time with them and not me. We hadn't been married long.
No, I didn't realize the time commitment. That wasn't something that was apparent, because as an outsider, you don't really understand how coaches don't just show up to the game. They're obviously conducting practices, but they're also involved in their players' lives to the extent where, you could be counseling a player, in your living room at 11:30 at night.
I had mixed emotions about him being a coach.
It takes a special woman to let a coach be a coach, because you spend so much time away from them. They have to be good self-starters or motivators, and they have to not mind, being alone, because there's so much time that they're going to be alone.
Having to share him and him being away from home so much at practice, his practices would run late. He would get home late for meals.
Well, I was lucky when I started being a coach's wife, because I didn't have a family yet, so I sort of got my feet wet a little bit. Gina was assistant down in Virginia. We had our first child there. So my first child was when he was an assistant. It's still the same, because it's still busy and sort of crazy.
I just knew I liked sports. It wasn't a problem going to the games, because I enjoyed the game. I really did not initially understand the degree of seriousness of this industry and the game, and a career in college coaching.
Hey, Suzanne, it's Mio. It is good. I was looking for my husband. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna just drop. Are they close to done, or you don't really know? Okay, good deal. Well, I'm going to drop Luke off because he said I could earlier, so he won't be disruptive during practice, I don't think. Okay, Suzanne, thank you. Okay, bye. So they're in practice right now. We can go in briefly, check out practice, drop him off, and then we'll head back out, because we've got to get these guys fed before Noah's soccer game at 5:45, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from now. We'll be out in a second. Thank you. I just try to be nice, because I don't like for people to take advantage of me, so I don't want them to feel like I take advantage of them.
Do you have to remind yourself to not take advantage of the fact that you're the coach's wife? I mean,
No, definitely. In fact, I try to go the opposite way, as far as not getting any special treatment. I don't know if that's the way my parents raised me, or just the way Rick and I have just kind of molded ourselves.
I think one of those.
Okay, we'll go on in.
Coconut.
I know it would be easier to be a parent on a schedule, on a routine, but I'm not in control, and so I do the best I can. I pray in the morning that God would help me, get through it and give me wisdom, give me insight, give me strength. But besides that, it's very fluid.
She's the best. There's no coach's wife anywhere that pours more into the program than Mio does. She can't get out there and make shots, but she does everything else outside those lines to give yourself or your team the best opportunity and chance to win.
Go run. Hey, thank you. Thank you. More clothes. In the car.
I don't think I had a lot of expectations early on, other than what a couple of coaches' wives told me. Oh, Jean, you got to prepare yourself, you know. And I kind of thought, it's not going to be tough, you know, and that's not a worry.
You know, I grew up with both parents as coaches and teachers. I spent most of my time either in a gym or at a track or on a cross-country course, because those were the main sports that my parents both coached. So I knew I would be involved in sports in some way.
Of course, basketball now is a 12-month sport, so there really isn't any downtime. And, you know, it's funny at our house when basketball season starts, you know, Mark is an athlete and he gets in the zone. You know, it's the basketball zone, and so when things start happening around the house, I'm like, I can tell it's basketball season.
There's times where, you know, especially during basketball season, I'm out in left field, and she's learned to accept that and live with that pretty well. But she also at times sticks that elbow in my ribs and says, listen, buddy, you need to straighten up and you need to join reality here again, because
I'm not that tough.
Well, you're pretty tough. She's hard on me sometimes.
Before we got married, and after he took a coaching job out in western Kansas. He was head men's basketball coach in a small town of about 800 people.
High school?
High school. So it was the big event in town. And so when Coach got married at Christmas time, it was the big news of the town. So that when we first drove in, they all knew the day that I was coming into town. And that night there happened to be a basketball game. And so I head to the gym. The game's already started because I'm just a little nervous, you know, about meeting everybody in town. And of course everybody in this town is in that gym, you know. So I opened the door, and of course all eyes, whoom. I thought, okay, now I know what this means, you know.
I really enjoy it when I can go somewhere in this town and the person that I meet doesn't know who I am. Love it. I substitute aerobic here. I'm certified aerobics instructor, but my schedule doesn't allow me to have a really scheduled class. When I say my name is Mio, I'm your instructor, or even at the grocery store or Walmart, they don't know who I am. Parents at the soccer field, they have no clue who I am. Oh, you're Coach Stansbury's wife, and they put it together. It's like all of a sudden, it's not that, I mean, they were surprised at how nice I was before that they knew who I was. I guess that they, I think that, how can I say this? I think that people would automatically, because I'm Rick's wife, a head coach's wife, that they would automatically prejudge me or automatically put in their mind how I'm supposed to walk, behave, talk, treat them by who they think that I should be.
Tim Gergerich's wife, Kathy, who Tim was an assistant at UNLV when David played here, and she told me that the one thing that you have to be a coach's wife is you have to be extremely independent and flexible. She was dead on.
I went to my mom one day and I said, I'm done, I can't do it anymore. You know, I want out. And she told me, she said, you either need to get out or you need to get a hold of yourself and get involved and figure it out. So from that day on, I started going to practices and walking on the track, taking the kids down and letting them play. I started doing the team's laundry, the game uniforms, and just got involved in the booster club and started meeting people. And I stopped feeling sorry for myself and decided to support what he loved to do.
Before I started making this film, I read the book The Coach's Wife by Carolyn Allen. Mrs. Allen is married to Randy Allen, the head football coach at Highland Park High School in Dallas, Texas.
I was very nervous when I first did it because I didn't want to come across as knowing more about being a coach's wife than someone else, because there were far more people that had stories, that had experiences, that were a lot wiser. But hey, I was the one that was available and I said yes, and so I became the author.
For me, the book was assurance that my family was not alone in many of the things that we experienced.
For many years, one of the toughest parts is just making the finances work. I took my book to the University of Georgia when Randy was speaking at a clinic there, and I arranged to have lunch with one of the coaches' wives so I could meet somebody, and I gave her my book. And usually at a college Division I job, you just think, oh, everybody's being paid a lot, and a lot more than in high school. But the first thing she did with my book was, where's this chapter on finances? I've got to see, how can we make this work? And I just think that that's true that is truly one of the hardest parts.
Big-time coaches' wives have a completely different life than the average coach's wife, because the average coach does not make a big multi-million-dollar salary, and so you're sacrificing and struggling.
I remember Nelson one time working on what he was getting paid for coaching and the hours that he put in, and I think it was like, it was less than $1 an hour, like 37 cents an hour that he would make if he included all the hours he put in of taking the kids home or picking them up, because some of them didn't have any way to get to practice.
There's no money in coaching. I've told people before in the stands, if you want the measly penny he makes a day, you're welcome to it. It doesn't make or break us.
I know that what he does is not for the money only. I just don't, he's too passionate about it. I've heard him fuss at guys about, if you don't love the game, leave it.
I've missed 2 games in 14 years.
Went to all the games.
I love going to games, and I don't know if I've ever missed a game, to tell you the truth.
I go to away games, home games, 3 times a week sometimes with JV and freshmen.
I would go to every game. I believe I missed 1 in the 8 years as him being a head coach, and that's away and at home.
Drove, the distance to all the games. The only time that changed is when our oldest daughter, who is a collegiate basketball player, when she started playing, then of course, and as Tony would insist, their games took priority.
Working full-time, I think that doesn't allow me to be as maybe involved as much as I think Cass would like me to be involved, but I do go to games, especially during season.
I try to travel several times with the team during the year. With my kids being the age that they are now, they keep me very busy.
But it wasn't unusual for us to go to a basketball game and then, have the car packed up and ready to drive on to a doubleheader.
Knowing that she was there was always good, and it at least gave me maybe a lesser sense of guilt that they were involved and they were participating, and I knew that they were going to get ice cream or go to Nordstrom's on the way home. The kids were going to get a shirt out of it. So there was probably some negotiation in there somewhere.
I'm not like rabid, like physically, outwardly rabid, but I'm involved. I want to watch the game. I don't want to talk to whoever's sitting next to me. And I love, if my mother-in-law is sitting next to me or my daughter, they all know that. I'm not going to sit here and chit-chat.
She's probably more competitive than I am. She's sitting over there and there's this look on her face, like probably more like I want to kick their butt, more so than I do maybe sometimes. Because I think she doesn't have a way of expressing it. I'm actually there on the court. I can do something about it. She's sitting up there, and like the tensions when you're sitting in the stands are much more heightened than when you're sitting on the court.
I'm pretty into it. I really don't want to sit around anybody that just wants to talk. I come to watch the game.
I prefer to be in the mix. I do. I want to see, I want to watch, I want to feel the energy that's there while he's coaching, the energy with the players.
Come on, runners!
I try to balance my temperament. Now, the referees, I don't like when they do what they do.
What are you saying, Ralph? He's double dribbling.
But I wouldn't describe myself as being out of control ever.
I will never yell anything negative, but I will yell a lot. You know, great spike, Coco, way to go, way to serve Mariah, or whatever, And after the game sometimes, I heard you, Jean. I said, well, good.
Because although I understand the games, I kept stats, I know what's right and wrong, I don't know what plays they're running. I've never grasped that part of the game. But I think that if I yell out enough, that helps them.
When he first started, I felt like I needed to sit with the parents and just thought that was what I needed to do. But as years have gone by, that's just kind of like poison.
Early in Kirby's career, when we were first married and I was going to most of the games, I would sit kind of among the crowd, the parents, whatever. And after the first few games, when you start hearing people, talking about what the coach is doing or why he's playing this one and not that one or why he made such and such call or whatever, you quickly learn that you're probably better off to not be right there in the middle.
You learn to have a tough skin. You have to keep it in perspective. Nobody's ever going to make everybody happy all the time. Somebody's always going to be unhappy. Sometimes you hear it, sometimes you don't. But certainly in the bleachers, it's one of those where you take your chances.
I kind of pick my seat too. I know who to maybe stay away from, but when I come now, I feel like everyone gets a little quieter around me, so I don't hear it too often.
We strategically made sure that the children did not travel on the road when they were small with me because of the level of abuse from fans or wherever we were.
The stadium, the setting for the games, it was pretty intimate, and I would be sitting in the stands with parents. And to listen to the parents who over the years became more and more critical, freer to criticize, having absolutely no idea what goes into it or what their student player may have been doing the week before or the week before that. So that was very difficult, and I'm not really a person to not speak my mind, so rather than be unprofessional, I chose to isolate myself and sit somewhere completely separate. I couldn't sit in the stands. Because, it's never your child's fault. It's always the coach's fault.
And for me, in the relationship with Phil, I felt that I was an advocate for the coach. And I was surprised how many things would be blamed on the coach that weren't the coach's fault, that I'd never understood until I saw both sides. It was very illuminating for me to understand how quickly people pile on the coach.
Because, when you're losing again, there's nothing right. They're the worst coaches in the world. They need to get rid of them. They should do this and that.
We have great fans. We have probably some of the best fans in college basketball. But they love their team. They get very excited. There are times when things are not going quite as well, when they like to give their opinion of what should be done.
Yes, I've bit my tongue more times than I would care to talk about.
Most people don't know everything that's going on. They see the game or they see practice, but there's so many other things that are going on around that. The relationships between the players, between the coaches and the players, there's so many other things that go on that they don't understand, but yet they give their opinions and like to yell.
So I found a spot out in left field that I could go and set my chair up and I'd take my little dog and she could run around and they could talk about him all they wanted and I could call their sons a goober when they, you know, missed a ground ball or something and it was fine. They didn't care, I didn't care, we were all happy.
I think that although I'm proud of what he does, I don't let what he does define who he is. So I see him as my husband, not as the coach.
I love coaches. They're good guys.
Being a coach is hard, and there's probably more days that are frustrating than are, you know, about winning a championship.
Most people from the outside look at it as like, okay, he gather a group of guys together, they run in the gym and they have fun, you know, and then they play and somebody wins and that's it. But it's more to it than that.
Someone was telling me just yesterday that when it comes to the end of your life, that people really aren't afraid of dying as much as they're afraid of living a life without a purpose, and that maybe you didn't know your purpose and you didn't fulfill your purpose. And I think how wonderful to be in the coaching life. You know your purpose, and you do see it lived out around you all the time.
And I like how he treats them like young men. He has very high expectations for them, and he just doesn't care about the game of football. He cares about if they're okay as a person.
He demands a lot, and I love that though, because he demands a lot, and the kids all respect it too, because he's saying, I expect you to get here. I don't expect you to be here. If I only expect you to get here, I'm not asking for a lot from you. So he pulls out as much as he can from them.
You have to be confident to play for him, no doubt about it. But you don't really know how strong you are. You don't really know how much you have in you. But he sees it, and he makes you see it.
Phil would be doing what he's doing if he was getting paid minimum wage.
I can't fix a car. You know, I don't play golf or bowl or do any hobbies. All I do is coach.
When we first moved back to Campbellsville, Kirby was an assistant coach the first year. And then he decided not to do that after that first year. And he said, you know, if I ever talk about coaching again, you just remind me of, you know, how much time it is and that I want to spend time with the kids. Phil couldn't get a break in the NBA and went and coached in Puerto Rico. He went and coached in the Continental Basketball Association. He drove the van. That next year, the coach at the college found out he wasn't helping at the high school and started calling him. So then he goes from high school assistant to college assistant, which was even more time. And I reminded him like he told me to, but it didn't matter because, you know, it's in his blood, and once it gets in your blood, I guess that's that.
I think when you're passionate about coaching and it's not just a hobby, it's something that you have to do, you want to spend literally every second. And I know, you know, one of the reasons why I've never really wanted to be a high-level college or pro coach is they literally do spend every second at the field or wherever. So for me, high school is kind of the happy medium where I feel like I can do a great job and still be at home enough that I'm not the absentee dad too much. At least I reconcile that in my mind with I don't think she'd want me around as much if I didn't have this outlet, you know. The thing that makes me tick to do, at least during the spring, then I'd probably be miserable around here. She'd have her trash taken out more, but I'd be miserable.
Some of the players that the former student athletes that he's the closest to now weren't the best players. Some of them hardly ever saw the field, but they participated in other ways. He did a good job of trying. I can remember him saying, well, he's a good kid. You know, a good kid carried a lot of weight.
Most of them are not going to be professional athletes, you know. Well, practically all of them, because the percentages are against them. But for them to grow up and become mature, good decision-making human beings, that's a tremendous feat right there. And if you've had just one little percentage of influence in all that, it sure makes you proud.
And we had a player this year to lose their dad in a car wreck, And he really went out of his way to make sure this kid was okay all football season. You know, we've brought kids home before. We've brought some kids home that people would go, why in the world would you do that? They need a way back. We're their way back.
Obviously, winning is a big part of his job. I mean, that's what he's graded on. But I think what makes him a good coach is that his players know that he genuinely cares about them.
I've seen him take hours to minister to one, to encourage them, to keep their heads up, or they're dealing with family issues back home, to keep them on track in their lives. Being able to have the opportunity to walk before these young men as a man of integrity, which many of them have not had fathers or men in their households.
When Dennis goes to work each day, he's not going because it's a job. He's going because he absolutely loves it. And there aren't a lot of jobs that are like that.
I have a career and, you know, employ people and we make money, but it's not the same. Very few people, I think, really have the opportunity, unless they're in teaching or coaching, maybe medical, where you're really changing someone's life every day. And I think that's great.
The opportunity to change people's lives every day goes far beyond a coach's career.
He really had an influence on a lot of them. He has so many that come back to him and tell him how much they appreciate what he did for them. And I don't care where we go in the surrounding counties, there's always somebody that he sees that he coached. And he has the guys that call him up all the time or meet him and go out and eat. It's real rewarding to see what some of them have amounted to.
Coaches' wives may not be on the court or in the locker room, but they find their own ways to influence the team. It might be cooking meals, washing uniforms, or giving rides home. Or, in the case of Neither McNabb, it could be a former Hollywood stuntwoman using her skills to lift her husband's football team to new heights.
18 years ago, Coach Rooney needed someone to go climb up that bird's nest, and my husband volunteered me. He said, oh, Neither will do it. And we were only dating also. We weren't even married yet. So I went up there to film the games. I do the game film that they trade with the other teams. So I climb up the pole, do the game film, and it's been 18 years and counting.
I wanted to do stunt work, and I said, well, I can do that. I saw it on TV. It had a promo about these girls that were stunt women. I said, well, I can do that. So I came out here to try and break into the stunt business. There was a baseball movie called A League of Their Own, and they needed girls that could play baseball like guys but look like girls. So I auditioned for it out here, and then they shelved the project. And then I heard it was being recast and redone with a new director, Penny Marshall, out in Chicago. So Joe and I were dating at this time, and I literally maxed out my credit card. I got myself a one-way ticket to Chicago, and I just showed up. I said, you know, I was cast in LA, or at least I, you know, was read for a part in LA. So what do you think? And they finally said, well, you know what, we're gonna do some auditions for some open stuff. Go ahead down to the field. And I got really lucky because I got picked to be on the Rockford Peaches, which is the team that the whole movie was about. Eventually I got lines, and so I got my SAG card. Not so I could act, but so that I could do stunt work. About a year after I had Ryan, I stopped doing stunt work, but I did stunts with both of them, like when I was pregnant with both of them. And even the pole, I climbed up the pole 7 months pregnant with Matthew. So, you know, as long as my arms could reach.
I see the team kind of as my children. In I used to say big sister way, but I think because I am a mother, it's more of a mothering way.
You know, you want to love them as your own children, and senior night is so hard every year, regardless if I have a biological son on the floor or not. It's senior night, and you know, we've been involved with those kids for 4 years or more.
We start off every season by having the team over to our home because we want them to learn to know the family. We want them to feel like they're a part of it. And sometimes there are things they can say to a coach's wife that they didn't get to say to the coach, you know, and that works out well too.
It's a team kind of thing. It's not just me. And, you know, I don't know what other people think or see when they see us work together, but, you know, I don't think they realize how much she does as far as me being a football coach, how big a part of that she really is.
She has seen more games. And she may not know all the highly technical things of the game or the sport or the tactics or the strategies or whatever, but you drive home with her and she knew what she understands, you know, and she has some suggestions once in a while, and you know what? I listen to what she has to say, and she's influenced me in so many fantastic ways as a coach to help make teams better.
And a lot of the suggestions she gives are not necessarily X's and O's specific. They're really more to do with the emotion of the team or chemistry or cohesion of the team or just various things, body language of a player or those sorts of things, energy levels.
The locker room, the court, that was never my space. What I would hear from him would be, this player's worried about his wife because she's going to have a baby and we're going to make this 2-week-long road trip. Can you make sure that you check in on her? And, you know, let's just you and I keep checking in. I'll check in with him, you check in with her, and let's make sure that we take care of this family.
She's been tremendously important. I mean, she looks at things realistically. I don't look at things always from the realistic perspective. And sometimes she just says, hey, Mark, it's a ball game. And that's what it is, it's a ball game.
Kathy always takes the player side. So no matter how much I want to come home and moan and groan and complain about the players, about they're not doing this, they're not doing that, they didn't do that, it'll always come back to, well, you're the coach. You're supposed to help them do that. You're the adult. Why are you acting like an 18-year-old? So she had a way of throwing it back at you, like, this is why you have your job. This is why you're there. If you don't want to deal with this, then why do they need you? Why do they need you for it? Right, exactly.
You know, I think it's because a marriage is, you know, give and take. And in the profession that he is in, I mean, he doesn't have much to give. Get him! So I have to be the one that gives, or nobody's giving. Now, when he doesn't coach, I'll expect him to give more. I'll get a copy of this for him. But when he's not coaching, yes, he'll need to give me more.
You know, I met Gino when I was just shy of 18, and we dated for 6 years. We grew up together, and we were not attached at the hip when we dated. You know, I had my card night with my friends. I did my own thing. I'm a very independent person, so I like my life separate of him. I'm okay.
Had we had gotten married after I'd already been an established coach and had this lifestyle, and now she's coming into it, I think that would have been much different. Well, because I think those people are like, whoa, I didn't know this is what I was getting into. You see what I'm saying? So I think sometimes when coaches get married after their career starts, they bring somebody in who's not familiar with the nuts and bolts of how all this works. Yeah, and coming and going and, you know, all this stuff, late at night, early in the morning, here, there, everywhere.
We try to schedule a date night, you know, in between whatever that, or I go to the office, or when the boys were small, I would just bring them up to the office and they would get to see Dad. And when they got old enough, one of the things were, you know, one day we're going to change places and the boys will always be at the gym and I'll be able to. And that's what took place. But we've made it work. Every once in a while I'll have a, you know, remember me kind of moment, and he'll just take some time off and we'll go just kind of hang out.
You know, I had a professional career and I had, you know, friends at work and things that were going on at work. I had to travel quite a bit at one point in my career, so You know, it was challenging to we were leading parallel lives in a lot of ways. And that can be hard on any relationship, so it took a lot of effort.
And if we had friction, it's because she's strong, I'm strong. She's stubborn, I'm stubborn. She's been the boss 9 times out of 10 in her day, and I've been the boss 9 times out of 10 in my day. So at times it was like, you know, Trump versus Trump, or attitude versus attitude, or stubborn versus stubborn, and we go to bed with our backs turned sometimes, no question, or frustrated with one another. But in the end, usually you and your best friend, your BFF, they make up pretty quickly.
I think the relationship that he and I have has gotten me through those times, because I'll come and tell him, this is going on and this is what's being said, and he'll say, you worry about it way too much. It's and we're very open with each other about feelings and what's going on with football. So I think that the strength of our marriage has helped probably more than anything.
Idealistically, I think younger people, enter a relationship and think that it's going to be 50-50. Thank you. And I don't think any relationship is ever 50-50. And in this career with coaches, I think you have to be prepared for it. It's not going to be 50-50.
I remember he would go recruiting. We hadn't seen each other in a while. I would get my things and go recruiting with him.
She's come by to pick up the kids, and she might say, hey, it's a beautiful day, we're heading to the park. And I think, gosh, that's, I'm missing some time that I could be with the family. It's easier for me, I think, because she doesn't make me feel bad about what I'm doing. But yeah, there's a lot of times now, more so, that I think, is this really where I should be, or should I be jumping in the van with them and heading down the road?
When there were family occasions like birthday parties, things that were really significant, then I would feel not resentful, but it was a little troubling. But, and Tony also coached during the summer and was gone for months at a time. He coached in the Cape Cod League one summer. He coached in Butte, Montana for a minor league baseball team. So we kind of made our vacations around where he was coaching. So that was the way we kept it, a family situation.
Holidays are not normal.
What's Thanksgiving like for you guys?
Thanksgiving is crazy. Usually we have a tournament. We've been pretty lucky because with it being Las Vegas, there are several tournaments in Las Vegas at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we usually have our entire family here, brothers, sisters, nephews, nieces, mom, dad, everybody for Thanksgiving and basketball.
When I first met Phil, he would make the players practice on Thanksgiving. And I really laid into him. I'm like, come on, give them Thanksgiving Day off. It's November, it's a long season. Let them be at home with their families. And he said, Jeannie, I bring them in the morning, just for a few hours. They'll have plenty of time to go and have dinner with their families. But I want them to know that we're their family.
We think more similarly every year that goes by. It's funny how we've grown together instead of growing apart. And that's one of the reasons I feel blessed that he has me travel with them, with the children, with the team on road trips, because we're able to be together. Isaac, take this down and then I want you to back up upstairs, okay? See, if we didn't, we would see him. They leave the day before. We wouldn't see him but half the week, and half of those are sleeping hours. So by going with him, we're literally stuck to him.
When the kids were little, we traveled. We traveled, and people thought I was crazy because I was, schlepping 3 kids in car seats and you name it. But I loved it. It was easy. It was easier to be on the road than it was to be a single parent at home.
The kids love to be in the gym. Both of them grew up in the gym. And the good part of that is when you're working with a women's team, you've got how many other mothers out there on the floor.
Gino, he's a really good father. So when he was here, he was here. He wasn't here and distracted. He wasn't here and on the telephone all night, you know, making deals, and you know, he was here.
You know, I'm not one of these guys that gets up 5 o'clock in the morning and has 10 things written down on the bedstand, you know, that I wrote when I was, you know, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't come home at 4 o'clock in the morning because I slept in my office, because that's not who I am. That's not the way I do things.
He does his work, but he makes sure that he has time for everybody else. And instead of being grumpy and saying, "Oh, get out of here, I can't do this," if any of the kids walk in and say, can you pitch me some balls? Can we just go out front and play football? He's up, he goes.
My kids know that they can call him anytime, anywhere, doesn't matter what he's doing, he will pick up the phone. He may not pick it up for anyone else, but he will pick it up for them.
He's so tender and so caring, and he is Mr. Family, where he has to be away a lot and he has to do his job, but his kids are the number one priority in his life.
I think I take the role of Rick being a head coach in a small town, I think I take it pretty seriously. I know that people watch what I do and they watch what Rick does, and I take it extremely seriously because some people say it doesn't matter. It does matter.
Who are you? Are you Kathy Oyema, or are you Coach Oyema's wife?
Well, for a while, I had a really hard time not being Kathy Osler anymore, because that was my maiden name. So, no, I'm Kathy Osler Oyema. I'm Kathy. I still feel, honestly, that's a great question. I still feel like the kid that grew up on top of the drugstore. You know, I'm still who I am.
I think I'm usually Randy Allen's wife.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm so proud of him. It's a good thing.
I am Coach Fudge's wife at ball games. I'm Denise Fudge any other time.
I don't feel insecure about the fact that maybe my identity is secondary, you know, who Carolyn Allen is, just because, I mean, it's such a positive.
No, I do not feel like I'm Gina Oriema. I mean, I'm my husband's wife, but I'm like Gina Oriema's wife. No, and I think it's weird for him, very weird for him.
It doesn't matter. I'm both. So that's another thing, that if you're not, as a wife, okay with that your only identity is and existence is focused on just because I'm the coach's wife, then something that can bother you.
I really don't think of myself as a coach's wife. I do think of Phil's ex-wife as, I really admire what she did for him, because he was married to her while he was coaching the Bulls. And she had, you know, the responsibility of raising their 4 children, and having to be that support to him, you know, for just, you know, coaching one of the most famous players ever to play the game, Michael Jordan, and winning championships. So she had to be his support for that while raising 4 young children. I don't know how she did it. You know, I don't have children, so I don't know what sacrifices you have to make to get it all done. But she did it, and she raised some amazing children, and you know, I have nothing but respect, and in some ways I'm in awe of what she was able to do, and you know, be married to such a complex man.
It was okay. Sometimes you felt like you didn't have your own identity because you were the coach's wife.
You felt that way
Sometimes.
So what do you mean?
Just like I wasn't Joanna Moore, I was Coach Moore's wife.
And were you okay with that or not?
Most of the time.
Most of the time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. But yet you still went to all the games and supported him and the team.
All of the games.
You know, and I'm a very independent person, and I believe in women's rights, and you know, I'm sure a lot of people would say I'm kind of overboard with that. But I think when you are a coach's wife, you're not subservient, but you are a servant. So you learn to be. And also, it gives you a sense of your own importance. You know, you're definitely a support cast. You're not the star, and that's okay.
Being a coach's wife and being behind the scenes, it would be awfully easy to be jealous of the coach because they get all of the recognition and all of the limelight, and you're just there. Whereas I can go to the campus of Lindsey Wilson and be my own person and have responsibilities that are just as rewarding to me as Mark is having on the court. And so, yes, for me, as a balance, it's very important for me to have that identity.
You know, I think my girls now, as adults, look back on it and say, oh, Mom, you know, it was such a commitment of time, and you didn't really have any time for yourself. But I honestly never felt like I was making a sacrifice. I really didn't.
I have no regrets. And I know that's a strong statement, but I believe that everything that happens in my life has made me the woman that I am now. Maybe I wouldn't have been as closest to God as I am now without it. Maybe I wouldn't understand how to be down and get back up, how to motivate and encourage. It just has absolutely developed me into who I am today. And so to be proud, if that's it, I'm glad that God has graced me to be able to support him in what I know if he wasn't doing it, he wouldn't be happy.
How do I feel? I feel, well, tired and lethargic, and that's what the team played like. We played pretty lethargic. You know, one of our players was at his grandmother's funeral this morning. You know, when they're a team unit, they feed off of each other, and yes, he was sad, and so I'm not saying that's the reason we didn't shoot, but, you know, to shoot, you have to have concentration, and we just didn't have it today.
What happens between you and Coach after a loss?
Oh, geez. It's, you know what, it's not good. Well, it's not that we don't fight, but it's just, I'm miserable for him. He's miserable, so we both sit there and we go back over the game. He'll be like, well, did you see this? And then I'll be going, well, that was not a penalty because I had it on the video, or this was not. And we just go over. It's like opening up a wound again.
Some years he handles it better than others. Some years, I mean, it's just rough. And I know that I can't say anything that's going to make it better. But, you know, earlier in our marriage, I would try to say something like, I still believe in you, or something like that, and he didn't want to hear that. He knew I did.
You know, one of the other coaches' wives, assistant coaches' wives, said to me, she was like, oh, tonight's going to be horrible. I just hope they win. I'm not going to want to go home tonight. And I never have had that feeling of, oh, I don't want to go home tonight. I'm more nervous during the game. I'm just nervous. I really want them to win, but I'm never like, not looking forward to tonight. It's going to be horrible because they lost, so, which is nice.
I formed a cocoon around myself, you might say, and I would go off in the corner and start watching tapes and eating potato chips. I've eaten many a big sack of potato chips, and the idea of it was try to get myself back in shape. But she, the next day, you know, she would have some kind of a positive word to say or something, and next thing you know, I'd be ready to go back to battle.
Now it's not too bad. He leaves it at the field house. 10 years ago, Friday nights after a loss were horrible. mad at the world. We should have done this, this, and this, reliving it, rewatching it. The officials were awful. But somewhere along the way, he grew up and decided that, you know, when I come home, it's not their fault that we lost.
It's tough on the kids, tough on our kids. You know, there are times, you know, after a loss where they don't want to go to school. They hear it from their friends. They hear it from people they don't even know. But, you know, it's hard for kids to deal with the criticism. They don't know how to deal with it. And then on top of it, you know, you're criticizing their father.
Number one, give Auburn credit. Jeff did a much better job getting his team prepared to play this game than I did getting our team prepared this game. And they played that way. I thought Auburn played with more passion, more toughness, more togetherness. Everything you have to do to win on the road, I thought Auburn had it. I didn't think we had it, for whatever reason.
When he felt pressure or was upset over something, of course, probably not meaning to, he would bring that home, and I would feel pressure and tension from it too, because everybody expected so much from the coach, and if they didn't win, it was always the coach's fault. And I guess that was the worst part, the pressure that went along with being a head coach.
Now, we'll talk about it, we'll watch the highlights, and I always give him my opinion because I tell him, I said, I could coach just like you.
The times that I really appreciate it is when I maybe come home and we're having a glass of wine, and I'll say something like, hey, did you see this? Or do you know about this? And she'll sit there and she'll listen, and then she'll give me her input. And there'll be a lot of times when I'll go, you know what, you're absolutely right. And it'll help me kind of see it from a different viewpoint, through a different set of eyes, and be able to go back, and I'm not getting it from my assistants, I'm not getting it from the players, because they're in it, so they're emotionally invested, and sometimes they can't see it.
We lost the league championship on Thursday, and as soon as the game ended, a reporter came up to talk to me, and I looked over, and there was Marco walking around on the field, and you know, I told him, I said, that makes it a whole lot easier to lose, and you know, it's just seeing them after the game, it's, you know, you realize, puts everything in perspective that, you know, it's a passion, you spend all this time doing it, but, you know, once the final out is over, it's over for the day.
You're in this game long enough, and you know enough people that there are times when it's just not your moment. It's just not. And you find yourselves understanding that it's really that other person's moment. You know, when we lost to Kay Yao, Nikisha Sales had ruptured her Achilles, and we ended up losing the game. And I could not wait to go and congratulate Coach Yao, because I was just happy for her. You know, I was sad for us, and you know, sometimes it's just not your time.
It was something that I had to learn with Phil, like how is he going to react, you know, early in the relationship. And you're right, thankfully he hasn't lost a lot, but he has lost. And I thought he would be a different person, exactly the same. He didn't like to lose, but he could always keep it in context. And in some ways, he's got this kind of, you know, dual nature to him, because he's got this, you know, Buddhist mentality, but then he's got this cutthroat, competitive side. And I think in some ways the losses make the wins sweeter for him.
Wins are always exciting. You know, wins are fun.
You're on top of the world. It's the best thing in the world.
It's easy to forget how tired you are when you are winning.
It's awesome. Winning is just contagious.
David's first big win as a head coach. We beat North Carolina, who was ranked #1, undefeated at the time. It was surreal. I don't even know how to explain it. It was just incredible.
There isn't a coach in the world that can have any kind of successful life. Forget about the field, just a successful life without a really, really competent, outstanding bride, no question. It's the best recruit I've ever had.
And you love her?
Love her to death. Yeah. Couldn't do it without her. She has been supportive from day one. When I was young and spending more time at the ball field than here, you look back and you think, gosh, she very easily could have said, I'm out of here. And but no, it's we're in it to the end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
She's everything. She's been there for me from day one. And as much as I love what I do, and I wake up in the morning thinking about how I can help our team be better and how we can win games and how we can make a difference in the lives of young people. But my love for her truly is that if I felt like it was best, I would give up what I do for her. And thank goodness she doesn't ask me to do that.
She's got outer beauty, but she's also got inner beauty. She understands life. She understands what's important. She has her priorities straight.
You know, I tell people I probably have the best job in the world. And it's made even better because I got somebody like Kathy that just, she makes everything that I do look better.
If I brought a young woman in here and I told you she had just married a football coach or a basketball coach, what advice would you give her?
I would say she needs to do one of two things for sure. She either needs to love what he's coaching and just dive in and be as involved as you can, or get a hobby.
I would want to make sure that you knew the commitment that it took to be a coach's wife, and that, you know, if it's in their blood, you can't get it out of them.
You're going to have to get in there and be part of his life, because if you don't, you're going to spend a lot of hours by yourself.
He is going to be gone a lot, and you will have to be flexible with a lot of things, but it's such a blessing to be married to somebody who loves their job.
I think the way a coach's wife sort of gets themselves in trouble if they're not independent enough.
I hope that you take some pride in the success, that you know your sacrifice is part of what helped get it to where it is.
I think we need to talk with each other about some of the unique challenges that come with being a coach's wife.
Structure your life so that you do have something else that's very important to you, and then to be prepared to be supportive.
A win or a loss or a season or a job or a place where you live, it's really not in your control anyway. So, so you know that it comes from a higher power.
There's going to be lots of ups and downs. There's going to be lots of things you don't understand. But you have to keep it in perspective.
Don't treat anyone wrong. Understand that level of the business, that they love you when you win, and you're going to get all this extra attention. Stay constant, because when you don't, you won't take it personal.
It will be a wild, wild ride. It will be 100% worth it, but it will be a crazy, wild ride.
When I first started this project, I wanted to tell all the world about what it was like to be a coach's wife. But along the way, I came to understand that I was doing so much more. I was telling one big love story. At the root of all these families is an intense and powerful love. A love that is strong enough to overcome great sacrifices and hardships, all in the name of teaching others how to play a game and how to live life. And at the center of all that love is the most important player on the coach's team. I know because I was raised by one. I'll always be proud to be the son of a coach's wife.